let's solve a linear inequality with fractions. Because I know what you're thinking, math isn't just beautiful enough, we need to add fractions. Our first and only problem for this video is going to be a little bit of a doozy. We have x minus 3 all over 8 is greater than or equal to x minus 2 all over 12 plus 1/24. Now, whenever you see these problems, they're a little bit of a but. Yep, there are implied parentheses. And this is something you'll want to make sure you get used to whenever you see fractions, especially when you see two terms in that numerator. This is actually called a binomial. So when we see that binomial up top in this fraction, it implies that there are parentheses. That means you would do x minus 3 first in order of operations, then divide by 8. Same deal over here with that x minus 2. Now, if it's just a one term, you don't have to worry about this parentheses step. So I'm not going to put anything around that one. Now, once you've taken care of any implied parentheses, we are going to get rid of the fractions, because usually you don't like to work with fractions. I gave us some large numbers just to give some practice with finding the least common denominator. So, the least common denominator, we are looking at all the denominators. In this case, we have 8, 12, and 24. And usually I take a deep breath and I go, do any of these numbers, are they multiples of someone else already there? So like 24, I see 2 times 12 is 24. So 24 is a multiple of 12. That's a good start. That means we just need to look at the other number, which is 8, and see, is he already a multiple of 24? And sure enough, 8 times 3 gets us 24. So 24 is the least common multiple of the denominators, because we can get it from 8 by multiplying by 3, get it by multiplying 12 by 2. So I am just going to clear the fractions by multiplying by the LCD. Why? So all the fractions go away and I don't have to work with them because they stress me out. So I am going to multiply everything. Everything gets multiplied by 24. And that is where those parentheses are super important. So after you multiply everything by 24, we're going to slow it down a little bit. We are going to simplify the fraction part, and we will end up with a nice whole number. This is technically divided, right? So 24 divided by 8 is 3. And we are still left with that numerator with his implied parentheses. If you didn't write the parentheses, you might only have 3x, which would be wrong. It's 3x minus 9, because you're going to have to distribute that 3 to each term. And same idea for the next part. We got 24 being divided by 12. That gets us a 2. And this inequality didn't move, it didn't change because we multiplied by positive. We still have that x minus 2 in his parentheses, plus, and hopefully you could kind of do this one in your head. If not, let's just verbalize it. We have 24 divided by 24, which is 1. 1 times 1 is still 1. Okay? Now the fractions are gone. You can breathe a sigh of relief. And we can go back to how we solve linear inequalities, where we simplify as much as possible first. So distribute. Make sure you watch any signs. Distribute again for this next part. Be careful. And that plus 1 is hanging out at the end. You're not distributing to the plus 1 because it's not being multiplied by the 2. Only the thing in the parentheses is. Okay? Now, if there's any more simplification you can do so. Makes life a little bit easier when we do get into the thick of it with solving. We got a negative 2 plus 1, which gets us negative 1. Now, after all that simplification's done, we're going to start manipulating our inequality. What we do to one side, we do the same to the other. Be careful if you multiply or divide by a negative. In this case, we have x on two sides of the inequality, so we're going to subtract 2x. What we do to one side, we do to the other. It actually works out really nice because 3x minus 2x is 1x. And let's be adventurous, team. Let's see, we have this minus 9. Let's go ahead and add 9 to the other side in one step. Now, adding does not change inequalities, so it stays the same. 2x minus 2x canceled. Negative 1 plus 9 is 8. And let's go ahead and graph our solution. If we were to graph it, we would start at 8. All right, 8 is included, so we use a solid circle, a closed circle. It's or equal to, that's why it's included. And x is everything larger than 8, so larger means we go off towards infinity. So there's our graph solution. If we want to, we can write it in interval notation. And interval notation says we are including that 8, so we use a square bracket. 8 all the way to infinity. Always use parentheses with infinity symbols. And last but not least, set notation, which says we have the set of all x such that x is greater than or equal to 8. And you are done.